بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So it's really good to be here for another of these family nights where we spend a Thursday night and we deal with a topic. We try to cover it inshallah ta'ala in some detail, and usually it's a topic related somewhat to the family, raising your iman, maybe some of the issues people face and things like that. So I have been making a habit of late to try to make these classes related to the most commonly asked questions that come to me. Because I feel that when we do that and we take the most commonly asked questions, it gets the most benefit for people. And alhamdulillah, we're able to record the classes. They go onto YouTube. At the moment, they're on Kalemah's YouTube. And many, many more people benefit from there, insha'Allah ta'ala. So I've been going through certain topics that have been right at the top of my inbox. And one of them that's been at the top of my inbox for a long time is this issue, and I've entitled it Teens in Trouble. And that is basically issues that teenagers go through and how their parents come and they ask for help and they say, look, I have a teenage boy, I have a teenage girl, and this is going on and this is going on, and what should I do about it? And we have a new time. I mean, we're on the same starting time that we had originally planned, which is supposed to be an 8 o'clock start. We moved it forward ever so slightly to 7:45 to accommodate Maghrib and Isha. But the aim is so we don't end up late into the late night and then everyone gets tired. So I'm going to try and finish the topic as much as I can in this sitting between Maghrib and Isha. So what are some of the problems that people tell us about? And definitely for those guys here who are, and the sisters also, who are teenagers, this is definitely not going to be like an attack on you or a list of all the things you do wrong or something like that. No way. This is a matter of trying to help your parents to understand you better and help them to find a way to help you that is good for you and good for them. That's what we want, inshallah ta'ala. As-salamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I have a list of issues, a list of things that people often say are part of the problem. So I'm just going to go through them and I'm not going to really comment on them at all. I'm just going to list the problem, because if you're going to start with a solution, let's start by defining what the problem is, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So we have laziness. When we have a situation where people are complaining that my teenage son, my teenage daughter, they're lazy, they don't do what they're told to do, and they don't have any energy and any get up and go about them. Bad friends, I'm not happy with who they're friends with. Issues relating to desires, they want to do all these things that are haram. Confusion, they're confused about things, confused about Islam, confused about what's right and wrong, asking me questions that I can't answer. Disrespect and bad manners is often on the list of things that, they don't respect me, don't listen to me, bad manners, bad choices often comes up. So like that they were on their own and they had to make a choice. Someone said to them, we're either going to do this, you can come along with us or not. And they make bad choices. Video games, social media, phones, definitely. Music, TV and films. Don't study. That was on the parents' list, usually in my inbox. My son doesn't study, my daughter doesn't study. Peer pressure, their friends pressure them to do this or that. No desire for Islam, that when we tell them about Islam, we tell them to pray, they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. And obviously we also have the inappropriate stuff that sometimes some of the teens get up to, things that are, not things that would come under the title of fahsha, of inappropriate and immoral things. Lying, definitely, this is a big one, of my kids lie to me, they don't tell me the truth. Physical changes they're going through and how we should explain those to our kids as parents. Sometimes more complex issues, sometimes the really bad friends can even lead to issues like drugs and things like that. Maybe not so much here as much as other places, but still it's not absent from here. Relationships with the opposite gender and issues of appearance. How do I look? For the guys, the beard, the thawb above the ankles; for the girls, the hijab and all of the other stuff. Those are, from my inbox, the things that parents usually bring up and say, these are among the things we're facing. Now, alhamdulillah, it's not usually the case that the parents are facing all of them. I never had a parent yet and who gave me all, I don't know how many I mentioned now, like approximately 20, 22, 25. I never came to a parent who said, my son does all 25 of those, or my daughter does all 25 of those. But these are a lot, or they're the most common ones that come to me as it relates to parents and their teenage children. So what I've done is I've collected a series of points that I would like to share with you. And on their own, none of these points are a solution to any of those problems on their own. But when you gather them together, they actually generally provide a really good framework that will help you to solve those problems and still sort of maintain the good relationship, and inshallah ta'ala will help your teens going forward. So the first point that I have, and I'm sure the teenagers will appreciate me raising this, inshallah. A teen is not a child. Islamically, it's very rare that you might find a teenager child for like 1 year. Islamically, 15 is the absolute upper limit. You cannot be a child beyond 15 years Hijri. That means 14 and a half years by your miladi birth date. You cannot be a child after that. So your vast majority of teenagers, your 14-year-olds and your 15-year-olds and your 16-year-olds and your 17, your 18, your 19-year-olds are not children shar'an. In Islam, they are not kids. And obviously, Islam defines a number of things that make somebody an adult. From the things that Islam defines that makes someone an adult are obviously the signs of puberty and so on and so forth. And likewise, as we said, reaching 15 years of age. Any one of those happen. They don't all have to happen. Like some people say, okay, is the fact that they are growing sort of body hair on the private areas, is that enough? Yeah, that in itself, coarse body hair, is enough for them to become an adult in Islam. It's not necessary they should have all of those points together. Any one of them makes them an adult. So my point in this is that your average teenager is not a child. And so all of the things you've done to deal with in terms of your small children very rarely work when it comes to your teenagers. Because ultimately you're trying the wrong shape to fit it in the wrong place. Because they aren't children. And because they aren't children, there are certain things that you have to adapt to. Now, we're not going to say you have to throw the parenting book out the window. Everything you've learned as a parent, just pick it up, throw it out the window and start again. But definitely don't apply the same method you're applying to your 7-year-old child to your 15-year-old child. Because generally, they're not the same. And it is often the cause of problems for them because they feel like they're not being respected or treated like an adult, or maybe they feel like they are not being maybe valued. And likewise, from your side, the things you can do to pressure an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old don't work with a 15-year-old. You try them, they just don't, they're not effective, they don't work. So one of the things, and I'll just give you one idea, we're going to come across other things as well, but just to give you one idea about this, one of the things that I think is very important is a transition towards companionship and discussion, as opposed to just telling them off. You still have to tell your kids off. I'm sure if your kids were 25 years old, you'd still tell them off sometimes. But the point is that ideally, you want it to be based around companionship and discussion, not based around, necessarily, salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, not necessarily based around the same way that you would chastise an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old. You're not going to get your sweeties after dinner or something like that. That's not going to work with someone who is 15 or 16. So when you have older kids, one of the things that you have to do is you have to work towards companionship, friendship, building a bond with them, being able to talk to them about what they're going through, sitting down and saying, just tell me how you're feeling. Just talk to me about it. What's going on with you? Tell me how things are going. Just talk. And more of it is based on talking than is based on necessarily the chastising that you would do for a younger child. Because a younger child can accept ta'deeb. They can accept a bit of, chastisement and a bit of sort of, do this and don't do this. But it's as your child gets older and older, it works less and less, and it becomes more about suhbah, about companionship, about talking to them, about understanding them. Now, that doesn't mean you didn't become in charge. You're still the parent. You're still the one responsible. You're still the one in charge. But it's got to be more of an adult sort of discussion, and this will help your child to mature and help them to make sensible choices when you talk through the things that they've done. On this topic as well, another point that I think is very important and related to it is plan for the long term. When you are dealing with a teenager who's not where you would like them to be, short-term solutions are difficult to implement. It's very hard to do something and fix it in a day or in 2 days or in a week or in, a month. You've got to be thinking more like, how am I going to make this improve over the next month, and then again improve, and then a little bit more improvement, and then the next year a little bit more improvement, and then the next year a little bit more improvement. You've got to start thinking in years, not thinking in hours and days. So it's really important, because it's like when you're dealing with an adult. If one of you had a brother or a sister who was your age, and you had a brother or a sister, and they had gone a little bit off the rails in terms of Islam, would you have a plan where you're going to bring them back in 1 hour? You're just going to do 1, 2, 3, and that's it. I'm not saying that can't happen. Allah Azza wa Jal is merciful to whomever He wills. But I'm going to say that generally your attitude should be to make small incremental changes that are going to work over the long term, rather than let me scream and shout and try and fix this in the short term. Okay. My next point, the seeds were planted before their teens. I find this really important, that your teenager didn't turn out to be like they are overnight. In fact, the things they did at 2 years old and 3 years old and 5 years old have a major influence upon how they are today. And so, for those of you who have younger children, don't think this doesn't apply to you. Make the changes you need to make at a very young age. And I was just talking with someone before I gave the talk. We're saying about how in nursery you have music and nursery rhymes and cartoons and whatever, and then we complain when our teenagers are addicted to the TV and the music and the movies and whatever. But where did this start? It started in nursery. It started in nursery when all they did all day is watch TV and sing silly nursery rhymes. And sing nursery rhymes. So it's ultimately what you are doing, and some of the child psychologists say that what you do with a child at 3 or 4 or 2 years old is more significant and has more impact on their development of their personality and their likes and their dislikes than anything you do after that. So what you do with your child at a very early age makes a big difference. And if you as a parent are sitting thinking, my child turned 15 and went off the rails, that is completely the wrong idea. Rather, the seeds were planted long before your child reached 15. And the problems were there long before your child reached 15. They reached a peak now, they were getting more and more and you didn't notice them, and then 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 they got to a point where you said, where did this come from? Anna hadha, where is this from? No, this came as something which was accumulated over time. More and more stuff got added and added and added at 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, until it got to the point where you felt like it became an issue. But the way to fix it, if your child is still young enough, the younger your child is, the easier it is going to be to correct those problems. So it's like, when you go to the dentist and you have all those like holes in your teeth and he fills all those holes and he says, if you would brushed your teeth when you were 5 years old, you wouldn't be sitting here now with this drill in your mouth. And I'm going to say straight, if you take care of the tarbiyah of your children when they are young kids, you will not be the one sitting when they are teenagers saying, where have my kids gone? What have my kids done? What happened to me? As a rule, the more effort you put in when they are younger, the more you're going to reap the rewards of that when they are older. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Now, it doesn't mean that nothing happens when they get older, but clearly what we want to say is that problems don't land from the sky at 15 years old. They are built up over time and they accumulate within a person over time. Okay, also on this topic, I have the next point. Everything happens earlier than you think. Generally, parents are so incredibly slow at realizing what their kids are going through that, their kids are 16, 17 and they still think of them as 6 and 7. In terms of what they know, what they've been exposed to, the kind of adult ideas they might have, the kind of feelings they might have, the kind of problems they might be going through, the kind of anxiety they might have. And we're looking at our kids who are, 16, 17 and saying, they're just a baby. He's a baby. Nah, he isn't thinking about that. He's not thinking about girls. He's not thinking about the opposite gender. That's not mine. He's innocent. He's small. It happens earlier than you think. Much, much earlier. Seriously much earlier. I would say to your average parent, put the age you think it happens at and take 5 years off. And then you might be getting near to the area that you should be in. What does that mean? That means that you need to preempt these things and stay in control. Because one of the things that happens is often because we're so behind as parents, and everything we find it out way too late. We're way behind, sometimes years behind. The problem is that we lose control. We no longer have the ability to be able to sort of plant the seeds of good in our kids. So if I knew my son was thinking about relationships, I might sit and talk to him about relationships. But if I don't know he's thinking about that right now, and I think, no, he's still a baby and, he doesn't think like that and whatever. And then he gets to, 13, 14, 15. What's going to happen? Where's he going to get that information from if he doesn't get it from me? He's going to go and get it from the internet. He's going to go get it from his friends. He's going to go get it from people who are not going to look out for his best interests. And so it's really important that, again, the communication is there, the relationship is there, the openness is there, that you talk, and you try as a parent to be the first one to speak about something, to preempt something before his friends at school are the ones to raise something with him, and then he gets the wrong idea and goes off on the wrong path. Okay, that is connected to my next point. Wake up and plug in. So as a parent, you need to be aware, acutely aware of what your kids are doing and what they're going through. You don't need to have the spy cameras out, but you do need to be aware. And there's so many times that we see parents who are in ghafla, total unawareness of what's going on. SubhanAllah, sometimes we do the camp with young kids and we take the teenagers out and the teenagers telling them they're going through issues of drink, drugs, girls. And you go back to the parents and you ask the parents, could you just name me one problem your child is going through? and no idea, like totally no idea. Or their children are being bullied, or they're bullying others, or whatever's going on, but the parents are totally absent from it. You have to wake up, you have to be plugged into what your kids are going through. You have to be aware, because usually if it's the first time or the second time or the third time, you can deal with it, no matter what it is. Worst case in the world, you give me the worst thing you can imagine, first time, second time, third time, you can deal with it. But if it's been going on for a year, it's been going on for 18 months, and you weren't aware, that to me says that someone's not got their eye on the ball. You have to be aware, you have to be awake, you have to be plugged in. Otherwise, you're going to be the one saying that, how did this happen to me? And that's what happens. We've got in situations where there's a young teenage girl, she's got herself into a relationship, and she's been in that relationship for 18 months. Now, you guys know how relationships start. They get more serious over time, right? Like things get serious and more serious. She's been in that relationship for 18 months. Her parents don't know about it. It's reached a certain level that it's very difficult to untie that now and fix it and bring it back. It's hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard. If the parents are a little bit more plugged into what their kids are going through, and we can stop that at 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, then we have a lot better chance of dealing with the issue bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So it's really important that you realize that you have to be plugged into what your kids are going through, and you have to be aware of it. And the problem often with this is, which leads kind of to my next point, things are totally different and exactly the same. And I made this point contradictory deliberately. Things are totally different and exactly the same. Okay? How are things totally different? The life that young people, teens live today is completely different from the life that we or the generation older than us lived as, when they were teenagers. Totally different. It's fundamentally different from beginning to end. Like some parents think that they're like tech savvy, like they're like, yeah, I even have a Facebook account. Do you even know that your kids don't even look at Facebook? So again, it's the issue of things are very different. And that's hard as a parent. It's hard to plug in. It's hard to know what they're doing when, their kids bring up Snapchat and you're like, what's Snapchat? And then they explain it to you and you go, I don't get it. What's that? Yeah, and it's really important. It's extremely important that you get familiar with these things. You learn how they work. You learn the dangers, the positives, the negatives, and you get plugged into what your kids are doing. How are things exactly the same? The fundamentals haven't changed. Bani Adam hasn't changed, right? Human beings are still human beings. The things that drive us are still the same things that drive us. The things that appeal to us are still the same things that appeal to us. Like at the end of the day, the way that the world works and the sunnah of Allah Azza wa Jal hasn't changed. So in that sense, you don't have to worry. The fundamentals are the same, the mechanics are the same. But what's changed is the way those things are presented. So maybe now, peer pressure might take place over social media. It may not take place in the school. Your kids might get bullied online and not get bullied in school. They might have a great life in their classroom at school, but online they might be suffering to the point where they're a breaking point. That's different. But the basic mechanics of how things work are the same. The basic idea of peer pressure is the same. Peer pressure didn't change. It's still peer pressure is peer pressure. It didn't change. But the way things happen did. So things are completely different and exactly the same. So you have to bear that in mind. Having said that, talking about some of the things that are the same, 2 things that lead people astray. This is a fundamental truth about human beings, that there are 2 things that lead human beings astray: desires and misconceptions. Shahawat, shubuhat. Since the day that Allah Azza wa Jal created Adam, alayhi salatu wassalam, this is a sunnah of Allah. Shahawat, shubuhat. Desires or misconceptions. And so whatever's going on, it would help you to think of it like that. There are desires. And by desires, I don't necessarily mean physical desires. Desires, you want something you're not supposed to have. And at the age of 13 to 19, the amount that you want, that the strength of that desire is extremely strong. It's fueled by hormones and the shaitan and a lot of other things, whereby you have a very strong desire to do things that are not halal for you. And that desire at that age is much stronger. That's why the Prophet ﷺ spoke so badly of an old man who is, getting affected by his desires. Because at the end of the day, as you get older, you become a bit more calm and a bit more in control of it. But at a young age, when you want to do something that's haram, you want to do it, and you want to do it right now. And that can be across anything that is haram, from listening to something haram, looking at something haram, doing something haram, saying something haram, wearing something haram, whatever it is. But you want to do it right now. Those are desires. On the other side are misconceptions. Misconceptions are where you're not being fueled by your heart, like, I really want to do this. Oh, it would be just so amazing if I did this. It's where you get confused and you start thinking that it's okay. And social media has made this worse because it's made it very easy for the shaitan to spread confusion among people, especially people who primarily get their life from social media, like the average teen who gets like everything in their life from their phone and their social media and whatever. One of the things that causes is it makes it easy for people to manipulate them and for people to confuse them and to make them think something is okay when it's not okay. So for example, if I type in, is the hijab part of Islam? ? Enter. I will get a massive array of videos from people who, they don't know Islam from the front to the back. They don't know the 5 pillars of Islam. They don't even know the first pillar of Islam. And yet they will be telling you, they will be giving you a fatwa that there is no such thing as the hijab in Islam. And that the hijab was a cultural thing that women did. It's not mentioned in the Quran. It's not mentioned in the hadith. Wallahi, take any of them and ask them to read Surah Al-Fatiha. You will not find 1 in 10 can read Surah Al-Fatiha from them. And they tell you in the Quran it doesn't say. You say, okay, do you speak Arabic? No. So how do you know that it's not in the Quran? The point is, you open YouTube, Google, whatever you want to open, and you type in an Islamic question and you're going to get an array of answers. You can find one answer for every day of the week. Halal, haram, makruh, mubah, mustahab. You can find more than that. You can find anything and everything. So if that's where your kids get their primary source of information about Islam from, they could easily end up thinking that what they're doing is okay, when in fact it's not okay. And I went through that when I was a teenager. When I was about 14 years old, I became Muslim. And I was, sort of trying to find out information. I got information that was wrong, and it made me think certain things were okay that were not okay. Or even worse than that, it may make them do the haram believing they've already done it. And a classic example of this is zina. Now, zina has a definition in Islam, a very clear definition. And there are a lot of things that don't come under it. But what people will tell you is, look, to be honest, if you said to that girl you're going to take her out for dinner, it's over for you anyway. You may as well do whatever you want. And so what they do is, it leads them to think that they can go ahead and do something even worse because they believe they've already fallen into it, as opposed to someone who is grounded in Islam who says, Ya stop, you have a chance, you haven't fallen into that punishment yet. You can step back, inshallah ta'ala. So be careful about these two things and know that each one has a different solution. The solution to desires is not the same as the solution to confusion. Confusion cannot be dealt with except with ilm, knowledge. There's no answer to misconceptions except knowledge. You've got to get them to a person of knowledge, and you've got to get them taking their deen from a person of knowledge. And if that means you have to take them to someone that they trust, that you know is going to give them the right advice, and let them privately talk to them about their issues, at least you know that there is somebody there who's going to get rid of those misconceptions, inshallah. Desires are a bit more difficult because, as we say, our susceptibility to desires goes very high in our teenage years. And then it goes down as we become adults, and it becomes a bit lower. And then as we go into old age, it becomes lower and lower, ideally. That your susceptibility to like following your desires. But when you're young, it's extremely powerful. So it's a matter of realizing where the problem is and then finding a solution. See, sometimes people don't realize the problem of their child is going through is a problem of desires. So they're sending them to an Islamic class, and the teacher is telling them that this is haram. They already know it's haram. If I ask these kids and we bring them for the winter camp and we say to them, and they know, I don't even, everything I tell them, some of them memorize, huge amount of the Quran. They know Arabic fluently. They've studied fiqh, they've studied hadith. They have no confusion that what they are doing is wrong. They just want to do it. And that has a different solution to the one who is confused about what is right and what is wrong. And on confusion, I want to highlight a particular point, which is the increase in atheism. Massive, massive increase. Like thousands of times over, I'm seeing this huge, huge increase in the number of young people, teenagers, who are getting confused to the point that they are turning to atheism because they are so confused about Islam. If you start thinking, and you know what the sad thing is? They might have brought up those confusions with their parents 2-3 years before it reached the critical point. I deal with a lot of people who, when I go to them, I come and sit down and I'm like, bro, what's happening? It's like, I'm not a Muslim. I'm like, okay, tell me about it. What's up? And I find out that over the last 2 years, the confusion has been building. Again, YouTube videos, whatever, websites, whatever. There are stuff there where people are targeting your kids. And you really can't do a lot about it because, to be honest, it's very difficult to filter. But the point is, at least be aware of it. When the child comes to you and says, I don't get it, like, why does Islam chop off the hand of a thief? And you say, oh, stop worrying about that, go back and study. And it happens again and again, and another question, and another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and the signs are just going over the parent's head. 2 years later, I'm not a Muslim. And that's not a rare occurrence, unfortunately. قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. That's not rare. I'm dealing with it weekly. In Dubai, in a Muslim country with Muslims. I'm not dealing with it in England, and how many people are suffering from it. In Dubai, with Muslims, young girls, young boys, 13, 14, 15 years old, going to their parents, I don't want to be a Muslim anymore. It happens because of desires, because they want to do something they know is haram and they don't really want Islam to restrict them. It happens because they don't know what Islam is and they don't know the beauty of it, and they get confused. The point is, you can stop it early and fix it, inshallah. But if you let it go on 2, 3, 4, 5 years, ultimately, the output is that you end up with someone that Allah has sealed their heart, and it's very, 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 very difficult to try to encourage them to make the tawbah that will open their heart up again. Okay, knowing Allah is the key. If I was to say one type of knowledge that I genuinely believe will fix, Islamic knowledge that would fix vast majority of these problems, I would simply say knowing Allah. Because من كان بالله أعرف كان منه أخوف ولعبادته أطلب وعن معصيته أبعد. Whoever knows Allah more, fears Allah more, and does more to please Allah, and does less in the way of sins. Knowing Allah and knowing Islam. Wallah, the 3 questions of the grave. مَنْ رَبُّكَ? Who is your Lord? وَمَا دِينُكَ? What's your religion? وَمَنْ نَبِيُّكَ? Who is your prophet? That for our kids, before they reach their teenage years, to know the detailed answers to those questions, to really know why Islam is superior. And I'm not shy to say, Islam is superior, vastly superior to any other system of belief, whether atheistic or whether polytheistic or whether, any other type of belief system that exists in the world. it's so vastly superior that there's not even, you don't even need to try to show to someone how much better Islam is than any other system. But ultimately, if we don't convey that to our children and have that as part of their hearts, engraved in their hearts before they reach that age, then the danger is that people come along and say, you could come over to this side. This side's really nice. As an atheist, you don't have to care about what you do. You don't have to care about who you treat, how you treat people. You don't have to listen to your parents. You don't have to, worry about things being haram. There's nothing haram except what your own soul tells you is bad for you, and so on and so on and so forth. And unless the child has a great knowledge of Allah and a great knowledge of Islam, then that is going to be a sort of an obstacle. So knowing Allah is the key. Okay. On that same topic as well, my next point, don't make them hate Islam. Another problem I see among a lot of parents is that they push their kids too much in Islam. And don't get me wrong, we want our kids to be 100% Muslim through and through. But they push them beyond what Islam tells them to do. And they actually make the children actually really, really dislike Islam and maybe even start to hate Islam. Because they associate Islam with everything negative. Like there's nothing that in their mind, there's nothing they can think of that Islam brings them that is good. Because it's all been, do this, and go to this guy that you don't like and read Quran, and go here and do this, and don't ask any questions, and get up here and get here. And there's no reason why they should do it. Like there's no understanding. And it's just pushing all the time. And in the end, they end up with a dislike of Islam. So you want to make Islam the most beautiful thing. We give rewards to our kids for doing well in school. Like mashallah, they got a good grade, take a reward. Make Islam the thing you reward him for. Give them Islam, make Islam the sweetest thing, the best thing. Whenever you go to the masjid, that's when we get to go and get treats and we get to go get what you want. And make Islam the thing they associate, that Islam brings me good and happiness and good things, and I love it. Don't make it the case that Islam is what brings me everything negative, and my friends who are telling me to do haram is what brings me everything which is good. Okay. Also on this topic, make it winnable. Whatever you ask your kids to do, make sure it's within their ability to do it. Because sometimes we ask too much of them. Like for example, you're dealing with a teenager who's gone a bit off the rails, a bit in trouble. And then you ask them the very next day that they are going to do, first of all, they're going to get up for tahajjud. Then they're going to pray 5 salah in the masjid on time with the imam takbirat al-ihram when they're not praying at all. They're going to read Quran, they're going to do. Don't ask them what they can't do. Make it winnable, make it achievable. Give them a small goal that you want them to achieve, and then tomorrow another little goal you want them to achieve. And make them so happy, mashallah, you came and you prayed 1 salah in the masjid. Mashallah, I'm really proud of you. Well done, and I'm going to give you that thing you've been asking me for, which is not haram. I'm going to give you that thing you've been asking me for. Yeah, so at the end of the day, slowly, don't give them something they can't do. If they're at the stage where they're praying 5 times a day, but they're not praying the way you would want them, slowly, add small things that they can do. Because the worst thing is when someone gives you a list of things you can't do, and then you feel like, oh, forget it now, there's no point. I can't win, I can't actually achieve this. What you're asking me to do is impossible. It's okay, cool, let's just make it simple. Let's just keep it down to something easy. And in that, you have to have priorities. No point saying, okay, for a simple thing, I'm going to tell them to be good to their parents and never mind the salah. No, it's got to be priorities. So you look at the first thing first. And obviously the salah is extremely important. Allah Azza wa Jal said, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. The prayer prevents immorality and it prevents wrongdoing. Okay. My next point. As you are, they will be. This is really important. And I'm going to give you the example of lying. Where did our kids learn to lie? Many times our kids learn to lie from us. It's sad, but true. Our kids see the dad lying to the mom. White lie, no big deal. Yeah, I was home. I was there. Yeah, of course I was watching the pan that you told me to watch. A white lie, a minor thing, a very small thing. But they learn, the kid learns like, okay, he got out of trouble. He lied and he got out of trouble. All right, I get it now. And it builds and builds and builds, and their friends do it as well, and their peers do it, and it builds up until it becomes the point where every time I lie, things work out for me. And every time I tell the truth, I get a caning. So what's the solution to that? What I would often do is, first of all, you have to set an example to your children as you want them to be. That's how you have to be. Parents who don't pray, telling their kids pray 5 times a day. Well, the kids looking thinking, hold on, Dad, why does that not apply to you? Don't ask me that, son. That's just how it is. No, it's not how it is. You need to pray too. Why don't you go to your kids and be honest and say, look, I'm struggling too. Can we both try together? And if I fall down, will you pick me up? And you fall down, I'll pick you up. And you might find it gets a better response than pray, but I'm not going to pray. Likewise, with regard to lying, what I would usually do is I flip it around, and my kids will tell you this. If they tell the truth, no punishment. Even if they did something really bad, no punishment if they told the truth. If they lie, that's it. Double punishment if I find out they lied. So we have this like double down system, like you lie, double punishment. You tell the truth, nothing. You come to me and say, Dad, it's true, I did this, I messed up, I'm sorry, خلاص. لا تثريب عليك اليوم. Nothing blame against you today, go. But you come and lie, double the punishment you would have got. Whatever the punishment would have been, you're going to get double for it. So this is also about instilling truthfulness into our children. Okay. Also on this issue, and I don't know, maybe this might be a little bit harsh, but I like the term. It's a term we use in IT, and I'm from an IT background. Garbage in, garbage out. If you put garbage in, you get garbage out. That's how we work with things in IT. When you put something into some software, if you put garbage into it, you get garbage out of it. And your kids are the same. If they get their heads full of cartoons and books and junk on TV and every kind of just wasteful conversation, and it's just all the inputs are just garbage, then what do you think is going to be the output? The output is going to be the same garbage, the same language, the same not caring about anything important, the same lack of maturity, the same bad manners, because when you put garbage in, you get garbage out. So it's really important that you see your kids as they're like a fertile ground. Whatever you put on it, it's going to grow. You put a weed on it, the weed is going to grow to a huge big weed. You put a flower on it, it's going to grow to be a beautiful flower. Whatever you put in it, it's going to grow, in bad or good. So you must be careful that you limit the amount of haram and the amount of rubbish that your kids take in, including what is not haram, but it's just, lahw al-hadith. It's just wasteful, useless speech. People just talking about nothing and just being stupid and giggling and just silly things and, silly talk about silly things. The more of that goes in, the more you're going to get garbage out. And that's true in education as well. I believe that very firmly. Salam to barakatuh. That is true in education as well. On an educational level, it's totally true. That if, again, the kids are in front of the TV and they're just getting these dumb, stupid programs all the time, just full of just pointless stuff. The cat chases the mouse hits the cat cat runs after the mouse. This is making your kids dumb. It's just the more of it goes in and the more of these pointless videos on YouTube, just watching again and again and again and again, all the garbage is going in, you're going to get garbage out of it in an educational sense as well. So it's really, I believe this very firmly, that at a minimum, these videos and TV and all the rest dumb your kids down. They make them stupid, basically. And at a maximum, they actually instill disbelief. Like, for example, I mentioned this before, Disney. I have a special hate in my heart for Disney. And if you haven't noticed that, just go through the plots on Wikipedia. Just go through the plots, the plot line. Kufr, sihr, worshipping shaitan, worshipping idols, every kind of zina, every kind of haram. And this is aimed at what? 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds. Wallahi, it's evil what these people put out. Absolutely pure evil. Wallahi. There's no other word. And it's not like, it's like really fun to watch. And, we grew up watching it, all the rest. But wallah, when you see the actual plot and you break it down, you just see kufr again and again and again, like open disbelief. And this message is just getting drilled into your kids' minds. Music is just the same. Go to the top 10 downloaded songs on any music service, Spotify, whatever. And go to Wikipedia and just get the lyrics. And just go through the lyrics and just see what they're teaching. Drug abuse, rape, violence, murder, you name it. Yani every kind of evil, wallahi. Every kind of evil, wallahi. And when you put that amount of garbage into your kids, the same amount of garbage is going to end up coming out. So it's really important that we control a little bit that stuff that's coming in. Okay. My next point, give and take. I took this from my horse riding instructor. Seems a strange place to take a point from in an Islamic class. But anyways, I liked it so much what he said to me that I use this all the time. He said that when you're riding a horse, you have to give and take. If you have the horses we ride are ex-race horses. If you pull hard on the reins, they just go faster. And if you let go of the reins, they go faster. So basically you have to give and take. Pull a little bit, let go a little bit. Pull a little bit, let go a little bit. And your kids, that's such a beautiful method for how to deal with people in general, and especially your teens. Give and take. If you pull the reins all the time, they're going to bite back at you really, really hard. And if you let go, they're going to go off and do whatever they want. So you got to have control, but not so much that you're stifling them and you're making them feel like they can't be themselves, and then they're biting back at you even more. So you got to have give and take. And that's about priorities as well, because you're going to give on the things that are low priority and you're going to take on the things that are a bit higher priority. So get a bit of give and take. Try not to demand, because usually people just bite back at you, and try not to let it go totally. Otherwise, it ends up just being a field day for the shaitan. So give a little bit, take a little bit. Okay. My next point, I don't have too many left because also the adhan has gone. My next point, nothing is hopeless. So many parents get to the point where they think that it's totally hopeless. First of all, every teenager I meet, when I talk with them and they have issues, I tell them, Habibi, whatever you're going to tell me, nothing is hopeless. Okay? Don't worry about it. Whatever you've got yourself into, just tell me about it, we'll fix it. Nothing is hopeless. Nothing. So any teenager sitting here thinking that it's hopeless, me and my parents, we're just not going to see eye to eye ever, or any parent thinking my teenager's just gone, that's it, there's no benefit, there's no point. No, nothing is hopeless. Guys, nothing is hopeless. There's always a way to fix things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful that He keeps on giving us second chances again and again, third chances, fourth chances, fifth chances, and again and again. Even though it's not a guarantee from Allah. It's not a guarantee Allah is ever going to give it to you. But from the mercy of Allah is that Allah Azza wa Jal, these are young kids. They're not, alhamdulillah, it's not like they are turning to this kind of behavior in the very old age. We can fix it. But if we don't fix it early, it's going to become a habit. And I'll answer that with I'll answer the opposite of that, where people get it wrong and they say, well, I can do what I want. When I'm 25, 30, when I settle down, I get married, I'm going to calm down. The reason that doesn't work is really simple. The reason it doesn't work is for two reasons. Number one, you don't know you're going to live until that time. Number two, even if you live until that time, how you build your habits is how you go on. You built a habit to disobey Allah at 15 years old. Most people at 20 will have the same habit, and at 25 the same, if not more, and 30 the same habit, if not more. You can't just turn around and be like the brothers of Yusuf when they were going to kill Yusuf and they said, after this we'll be fine. Like, we're just going to kill Yusuf And then after that, don't worry. We're going to be qawman salihin, and we're going to be pious people after that. It doesn't work like that. You're going to have to fix the issue early, and so that it can continue bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And what I would also add to this is, for parents, is that your kids are the biggest investment you'll ever make. In time, in money, in heartache, in headache, in lack of sleep, in every aspect. Your kids are the biggest investment you'll ever make. And the return on investment is huge. Because the Prophet ﷺ said that when the children of Adam, or when the son of Adam dies, all of his deeds cease except three. And one of them is وَوَلَدٌ صَالِحٌ يَدْعُو لَهُ, a pious child who makes dua for him. The return on investment is huge, if you can get it. But likewise, on the other side, the amount you have to put in is huge. And so that leads me to my I guess what is probably one of my final points. Don't delegate. Don't delegate your kids' tarbiyah. Don't delegate it to school. Don't delegate it to the Islamic teacher. Don't delegate it to the Islamic Centre. Don't delegate it to your spouse. You are the responsible one. Every father, every mother, you are responsible for it. You are the manager of how your kid is going to be brought up, and how they're going to be, and what sort of person they're going to become. You're in charge. When you delegate it to the school doesn't really, for want of a better word, the school doesn't really care about your child. Not really. They care a little bit up to a point, but they don't care for your child even a tenth of what you care for your child. And likewise, the Islamic Centre, we have a lot of kids. If one of them goes, well, then maybe we don't notice, because we have we have a lot of people coming. But ultimately, you as the parent, it's your responsibility. Don't delegate to the TV, don't delegate to the maid, don't delegate to YouTube, don't delegate to anyone. You are responsible. Use whatever resources you have. We put some stuff on for you to watch, come to this Islamic class, do this, no problem. But be responsible for it yourself. Take complete control of it yourself. So that ultimately you know what's going on, and you don't think that you can just pass the buck, as many parents did, and they said, I just left my kids, we put them in a good Islamic school. So this is a conversation I have a lot. I sit down with them and say to them, okay, what's happened? Well, I don't know, wallah, I put them in a good Islamic school. But then at that point, I usually bite back and say, you put them in a good Islamic school, what does that mean? That means absolutely nothing. That means less than nothing. You get -1. And there's that tells me nothing. You put them in a good Islamic school. The only thing that tells me is that you're not taking responsibility. When you use that as an excuse, you're not taking responsibility for your kids' education. I mean, I would want to put my kids in a good Islamic school, but I'm not going to rely upon that and then say, why have my kids turned out like this? I'm going to put them there, and I'm going to watch it and control it and deal with it, and take action as quickly as possible to fix these issues bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. But I just want to go back to that very first thing that we said about companionship and friendship and talking. So I really do believe it is absolutely one of the most important things that you can do. I'm just looking through my list. I think most of the things could have been applied to the points that I made. Even the issue of bad friends, again, the issue of making slow changes. You can't say, okay, your friends are all bad, drop all your friends tomorrow. Realistically, that's, like most teenagers would, they don't really, but they would say that they would rather die than, get rid of this group of friends that they have. So you can't just pull that from them like that. It's got to be a slow process of, right, how do we get them in a place where they naturally make friends with people that are good for them? Because bear in mind that peer pressure can be positive and peer pressure can be negative. You can have peers who are like, come and pray, come and pray. Bro, come and pray. You can have peers who are like, don't pray, whatever you do, don't pray. You get positive peer pressure, you get negative peer pressure. So both of those two things can happen. So don't demand too much at once, let it go slowly, but make those incremental changes. And the more you do when the child is young, the better it will be. Because if they've got good friends at 8, 9, 10 years old, it's easier to keep those good friends going through the teenage years. But if they've got friends who are not good for them at younger age, it's a little bit easier to manipulate it and to change it at that age. Did I do a time for this and a time for that? I think maybe I didn't emphasize it enough. So one of my other points was, and we're going to be getting late for the salah, so we're going to have to wrap up, is a time for this and a time for that. And this is my response to video games, social media, and phones. Realistically, it's pretty hard to keep your teenagers off the phone. I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to say if your teenager is not on the phone right now, alhamdulillah, yani like just, keep it that way for a while. But if your teenager, realistically is crying for a phone, you only have a limited time. You might get a year more, you might get a year and a half more, but at the end of the day, it's something that is realistically going to happen. Let me ask you a question to the parents. Can you live without your phone? Your phone battery dies, you're like you ran out of oxygen. Like you're running to get a charger quickly. This is a reality of how we live. So it's a question of a time for this and a time for that. If you're on your phone all the time, this is a problem. If you're playing video games all the time, it's a problem. If you're playing haram video games, it's a problem. But the basic solution is a time for this, a time for that. And give a bit of time for this, give a bit of time for that. Balance the time. We're not going to say to you, no, none of this and none of this. You're never going to see a video game. You're never going to see a mobile phone in your life. And you're never going to see, you're never going to watch anything on YouTube ever. And you're never going to look at an Instagram account in your life. And it's not ever going to happen. And as for Snapchat, you can forget about it. We got to more like say, look, no haram. That's got to be a thing. And there's got to be a time. And it's a balance. Every child has reached the right age at the right time. So the kids don't go home and say, Muhammad Tim said I can have a phone. But it's not what I said. Everyone has an age which is right for them. But the point is, this is coming, whether you want it or not. You might, if you delay it till 15, you did well. If you delay it till 16, it's amazing. If you delayed it till 17, 18, wallah, this is like, this is like a karama min karamat al-awliya. This is like a miracle from Allah Azza wa Jal. It is coming one way or the other. So you guys gotta control it and make a time for this and a time for that. And I spoke to a young guy the other day. We had a chat about this. Parents were saying, look, he's on, Fortnite all the time. And parents, if you don't know what Fortnite is, really, you seriously need to plug in. He's on Fortnite all the time. And Fortnite is so addictive, there are people who are getting operations done to their bladder because they couldn't go to the toilet because of how addicted they are to this game. It's crazy the amount of addiction people have to it. Ultimately, any game, I'm not going to give a ruling on it. I'm not going to give you an opinion on it. But any game, if it's not haram, then I'm going to say, look, there's a time for everything. Sa'atun wa sa'a. There's a time for this and there's a time for that. And finally, reach out to people. Reach out to people to help you. This is a very short lecture. I couldn't cover everything. But reach out to people. If you feel stuck, reach out to the people at the Islamic centers. Reach out to the youth workers. Reach out to the young guys who understand, who are practicing. The best role models are those 19, 20-year-olds who are practicing Islam. Those guys are amazing role models because they're close enough that they look at them and think, yeah, I could be him, I could be her. When they look at you and think, Allah, don't make me him, don't make me her. But they look at those guys, 17, 18, a little bit older than them, because usually kids look a bit up to the people a bit older than them, and they're practicing the best role models you can have. But practicing, and they know how to talk to people as well. Not that they're practicing and then they get on the high horse and climb on the ivory tower and start saying, I am holier than thou, basically. That's not gonna work. But people who can connect with people and they're a little bit older, they can be role models, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So a lot of issues we had to talk about, probably do another lecture on it another time, inshallah ta'ala. But I just wanted to cover these sort of points and give people a balance to think about. And I've tried not to be sort of on one side, but try to sort of help the parents to kind of understand it is difficult. It was difficult for you. You probably don't remember how difficult it was for you. I remember how difficult it was for me because at the beginning of my teenage years, I became Muslim. So it's like ingrained in my memory what my teenage years were like. But ultimately, a lot of people don't remember. It was hard for you too. And there is a way through it, inshallah ta'ala. It just needs a lot of patience, a lot of companionship, a lot of open discussion, friendship, getting them to know Allah, taking them by the hand, slowly, doing things in slow, gentle steps, and ultimately asking Allah's help, because without the help of Allah Azza wa Jal, none of us would be able to achieve anything. So that is what I was able to present on this topic of teens in trouble. It's very generic, but I hope it will benefit, inshallah ta'ala, a lot of people who have these kind of questions, and then maybe when we get feedback, we can make it more specific. Because of the salah time, what I would like to do now is I won't take any questions, or not many anyways, just on the way out, inshallah ta'ala, because I'm very conscious that we might end up late for the salah, and I have a principle that I want to pray in the masjid. It's not yambaghi, it's not befitting when we have a masjid that is walking distance and another one that is 2 minutes drive around the back, and then we pray here, especially when we came from outside in the first place and we drove past the masjid at Maghrib time. So for me, we go pray in the masjid bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the class that we did at JILC, which was entitled Teens in Trouble, we weren't able to finish all of the points that I wanted to cover in the class. So in this short video, which we're going to add on to the original video, I just want to finish off with the points that we were making and we ran out of time for. So the point that I was discussing last was this point that the best role model for your children, for your teens, apart from the parents, because remember the parents are ultimately the best role model as a whole, are role models who are of a similar age or just a little bit older. So you want the people who've recently been through that experience. You want, your 15-year-old to be looking up to 17, 18, 19, even 20, 22, 23-year-olds who've been through that experience and come out of it, because they are the closest to it and they are the people who can most vividly describe what it's like. So they are amazing role models. You don't want to necessarily be looking at the role models, sort of a 30-year-old or a 35-year-old or even a 50-year-old or something like that. The role model you want for your teens is someone who has recently been through that or is of the same age. So if you can't find that, that practicing person that they identify with at their age, even a little bit older, but it is really, really important that it's somebody they can identify with. Not somebody who is, you may find the perfect image of what you would want a 15-year-old to be, but your 15-year-old just doesn't identify with them. They can't understand them. They can't they can't connect with them. So ideally you're looking for the role model who has the experience, near experience, recently been through it, but somebody that your kids can identify with. On that topic, my next point is, you are who your friends and role models are. You are who your friends and your role models are. And this is really important. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-mar'u ala dini khalilih falyanzur ahadukum man yukhalil. A person is upon the religion of his close friend. So let every one of you look at who he has taken as a close friend. It's really, really important, especially the best friends, the closest friends, that ultimately you are who your friends are in terms of your religion, in terms of your outlook, your manners, the things you like and the things you do. You are who your friends are. So really, really important to focus on that as being a major way of making a correction. But again, as we said in the class, it's not something that can be done instantly. You can't swap out the friends in one go and just replace them with another set, but slowly introducing them to people who are interesting to them, but people who have the right influence. And that's key here. Don't introduce them to people they don't like. Here's a guy they don't like, but he would be a great role model for you. You want to introduce them to people who are people they would like. And I didn't just say friends, I also said and role models. In these days, in the past, role models might have been a sports person or whatever. But in these days, many, many role models are in fact social media influencers. People who are well known on Snapchat, on YouTube, whatever, and they are very well known and they influence massively how your kids behave and feel. So having the right kind of role models, again, we're looking for people that your kids can identify with, but still be inspired in the right way by. Whereas what we see a lot of times is that we might pick friends for our children that are not really natural friends to them. They don't really like the same things or get on in any way. It just happens that the one that we picked happens to be, practicing the religion. Ideally, Islam is a very broad religion with lots of different people in it. It is possible to find a person who is practicing, who can inspire your kids, who maybe is someone that your kids would identify with closer. So it's not always your first choice, or your first pick is not always necessarily the best one. My next point, build a Muslim identity, not a cultural one. One of the most important things we can give our kids is an identity as a Muslim. An identity, to feel that you are a Muslim. And this is so important. And everything, we talked about the issues of appearance, and we talked about the issues of peer pressure and so many other things, and even atheism and loads and loads of other things come under this, that build a Muslim identity. We got kids in the UK who come out and they'll say, I'm a British Pakistani, I'm a British Somali, I'm a British Asian, I'm a British, whichever other culture, they can, or whichever other nationality. But we want our kids to say, I am a Muslim, first of all, and to identify with that as their primary identity. That my main identity is that I am a Muslim. And then after that, I have my culture. I have my parents' culture, I have the culture of the place where I live. Because now we have competing cultures. For many Muslim children, not all, but many Muslim children in Dubai, probably the majority, we have 3 major different cultures competing with each other. We have the parents' culture. Parents are from India, parents from Pakistan, parents from Bangladesh, parents are from Egypt, parents are from Syria, parents are from Jordan. We have the parents' culture. Then we have the culture of the country in which you live, which the kids are more familiar with because really they were brought up and they lived in that culture. And then we have the religious identity or the moral identity, which comes on top. And these 3 are pushing and vying for each other. The other 2 are just fine as long as Islam comes first. First of all, what are you? I'm a Muslim. Then, I have my parents' culture, I have the culture of the country I live in, no problem. But Islam comes first. And if there's any contradiction between the culture of the parents or the culture of the country and Islam, Islam overrides. So we want our kids to feel, first of all, not to feel that I am this nationality, this nationality, this nationality, but first of all to feel I'm a Muslim. That's my identity. My passport might change. My country I live in might change. But my identity will never change. I am a Muslim, and this is my identity. And that will save your kids from so many issues and so many problems. To have a strong Muslim identity, stronger than their cultural identity, stronger than their parents' cultural identity, is that they are Muslims. And they see that to be the most important defining factor, even if they're not practicing. And of course, we want our kids to practice. But even if they're not practicing, at least we have that feeling that, look, I'm a Muslim. I don't do that, I'm a Muslim. And that at least, gives some degree of attachment to Islam and would help bring them back towards Islam if they stray away from it. Okay. Double lives don't work either way. What do I mean by that? Double lives, living a double life is where you live a life where you are, you're a different person in the house and out of the house. And when I say either way, I mean being religious in the house and being not religious out, or being religious out and being not religious in. Both of them don't work. And it's a horrible feeling to live a double life. I did that when I first became Muslim. When I first became Muslim, I lived a double life of being sort of a Muslim when I was around some people and not behaving like a Muslim when I wasn't. Very, very, very depressing, extremely stressful. Not what you want to be, not what you want to be doing. So it's really, really important that we don't ever encourage or even allow our kids, our teens, to live a double life where they have a personality outside and a personality inside. We want to encourage openness so that really You know, what they're like inside is what they're like outside. Now, you're never going to be perfect in that. All of us have some differences. We behave a little bit different family, different with friends, different in school, different in work. We know that. But at a basic level, at a most fundamental level, we want it to be in the case that ideally there isn't a massive gap. It isn't the case that the girl is, mashallah, at home. You know, the hijab is always on when it should be, reading Quran, you know, doing dhikr, being so good. And then out of the house, hijab is off, the dress, you know, becomes short, boyfriend, you know, all of these other things that are going on. And she's literally two people. And that is really harmful to somebody's mental state. It's really stressful, and it's really harmful to their iman. So we need to watch out for this, and we need to do things that will stop our children from living double lives. Encourage and discourage. Islam is all built upon this stuff. One of the fundamental things that Islam is built upon is targheeb and tarheeb, encouragement and discouragement. Encouraging good and discouraging bad. Sometimes we only discourage bad. Sometimes we don't follow the methodology of the Quran and the Sunnah with our kids. We say, don't do this, and 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 do your homework, which for, you know, teen is like the same thing. What we want to do ideally is we want to have encouragement. And mashallah, you did really well. I'm really proud of you. You know, every child, even 20, 25 years old, they want their parents to be proud of them. Every child wants their parents to be proud of them. There's virtually no exceptions. Even when they tell you, I don't like my parents, I hate my mom and dad, I wish they were never my parents, all of this stuff that comes out. But in reality, in the heart, when you look at it, the essence of it is that they want their parents to be proud of them. But they just can't find a way to make it happen. So ultimately, you got to make that easy. You got to encourage, you got to praise the good, you got to say, Jazakallah khairan, I really appreciate it, mashallah, I'm proud of you, you did really well. And you also got to discourage the bad. But in a way with hikmah. Look, wasn't the best way. And you know, one of the ways to do that is to talk about consequences. You know, look, did you see how you did that and what it caused? Do you see the consequences that came out of it, the negative things that came out of it, the bad things? And you show them, like we said, mature conversation with your teens about what's going on and helping them to see the consequences. But it's very important that we encourage the good and praise it and give them reward for it, and we discourage the bad, just like the Quran does with us as adults. It has targheeb, go and get Jannah and do the good, and you know, and telling you that if you do this, you'll be from the best of the people, and discouraging the bad. These are the people of the hellfire, what an evil destination, and so on and so forth. Okay. My next point is to divert their energy and attention. It's very, very important. Our teens are full of energy, full of desire, full of, you know, they want to do things. It's really important we channel that. I'm not even going to use the word divert. I'm going to change it. I'm going to use the word channel their energy and attention. Now, that doesn't mean channeling it into homework, because ultimately it's not what they like. They might have to do it because it's a fact of life, but you know, it's not what they love. Channel it into something they love. There are so many halal hobbies. There are thousands of halal hobbies. And there are some of them are seriously fun. Like some of them are really, like, people would love to do them. But you have to go out and find what works for them. You know, generally the teens who are engaged in sports, the teens who have hobbies outside of, you know, just, you know, playing Fortnite all day, the kids at the end of the day who have that generally are much in terms of their parents' feelings about them, relationship with their parents, much better than those that don't have it. So it's really important to channel the energy and attention into something useful. You know, maybe anything. Some are sports, some are physical hobbies, some are not, but ultimately a productive hobby. You know, if they love being on the computer, it might be that they want to, you know, who knows, I don't know, they want to run a little business on the side, they want to, you know, set up a website, do something, or blog or whatever, but they want to do something productive, channel the energy into something productive and something halal, because at the end of the day, you know, as the saying goes, the traditional saying, it's not an Islamic saying, but it's a very traditional saying in English, that we say that the devil makes work for idle hands. And that's so true. And that shaitan loves the one who's got nothing to do. You know, so fill it with stuff they love. You know, it could be going out, you know, sports, it could be It could be doing things that they really want to do that they think their parents might not even let them do because the parents may be a bit sort of reluctant about it. But with positive role models, taking part in those activities with them, subhanAllah, really you can channel their energy into something productive and something good instead of taking it away into something bad. And this is one of the fundamental principles of diverting and channeling the energy and attention that we've used in the winter camps. So we take our kids, sometimes we've been skiing, we have been zip lining, we've been paintballing, we have been rafting, we've done like a lot of stuff. But ultimately we've done stuff like, we've done team competitions, we've done like loads and loads of stuff. But the key thing is we're diverting and channeling the energy and the attention. So two things, notice I said energy and attention. So the physical energy, they feel physically tired, and mentally, they feel mentally that they've, you know, it's challenged them, their minds, and it's challenged their bodies. And that's the best kind of diversion. When you can get that kind of diversionary activity that challenges the mind and the body, it's amazing and is possible even for the girls. Wallah, it's possible. It's possible to find something they really love doing, which maybe they wouldn't even expect. And especially in a place like Dubai, which has massive provision for both the brothers and the sisters in terms of outdoors activities and segregated areas and things like that, that ultimately there are ways even for the girls for them to take up something which will challenge them both mentally and also ideally physically as well, to channel the energy into something more productive. And my final point is speak in one voice. And what I mean by that is very often the mom and the dad speak in two different voices. Their kids learn to play the mom against the dad. Mom, can I do this? And the mom will say, no, you can't. Dad, can I do this? Mom says I can't. Yeah, go on, do it. Now look what happened. They got the idea that I can play mom versus dad. And this is even better than playing Fortnite. It's like the best game that they can do. Mom versus dad all the time. Get mom against dad, dad against mom, mom against dad, dad against mom. Eventually, I'll create so much chaos that they'll both let me do what I want. It's really important that you can disagree among yourselves. Like the husband can disagree with what his wife said, and the wife can disagree with what the husband said. But ultimately, it has to be one voice, meaning when what the teens hear is one thing. And then later on, you could change it. So for example, if as a dad, your wife said that the kids can do something and you don't think that's right, then you say, okay, your mom said, you know, fair enough. And off they go. And then you go and talk to your wife and say, look, you know, the kids are saying that you said that they can do this. I said, yeah, I said they can do it. Okay, what do you think about next time we should say to them, it's just this one time, or, you know, but you speak with one voice. Not the case that the mom and dad say completely different things, because it gives mixed messages and it allows any child, even kids as young as 2 years old, know how to exploit the differences between mom and dad. Like very young toddlers even learn how to play mom against dad. So it's really important you try to close that gap and speak with one voice between mom and dad. Those were the points that Allah Azza wa Jal made easy for me to mention in this add-on video. And inshallah ta'ala, we're going to tag this on and stick this on to the end of the video we made at JILC, inshallah. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.